The bridge of Horizon Breaker was colder than it looked. Not in temperature, but in silence. The kind of silence you get when 3,000 crew members are too scared to say what they're all thinking. Commander Ryland sat in the command chair like a man holding back the ocean with a shield made of glass. The Titan-Class Warship wasn't just a ship. It was a floating continent of steel, 20 kilometers long, and armed with enough firepower to crack a planet in half. It wasn't built for peace. It was never meant to talk. But someone back on Earth had decided Horizon Breaker would be humanity's front face during first contact. The flagship of Earth's military would say hello to whatever crawled out of the stars. Ryland hated the idea the moment he got the order. The crew was disciplined, sure, hardened, most of them ex-combat, trained in orbital warfare. But none were diplomats. None of them gave a damn about soft voices and peaceful signs. They were men and women who knew that, out in the void, weakness wasn't forgiven. The first signal came 13 hours ago, a repeating pattern like a heartbeat, intelligent, measured, and unlike anything humanity had ever received. The alien vessel was enormous, half the size of Earth's moon, and it drifted like it was searching for something. When they got close enough to scan it, the readings made even the AI stutter. The thing was alive, partly organic, and shaped like a sprawling sea creature made of glass and bone. 30 minutes until visual contact, Ensign Colt said, not even looking up from his console. His voice was deadpan, like he was reading off someone's death sentence. Ryland clenched his fist. Any change in their signal? Still transmitting that rhythm. No variation. No language overlay. No sign of weapons? Nothing. Yet. That yet hung in the air like poison. The protocol from High Command was clear. Establish visual contact, maintain distance, attempt peaceful communication. If the alien ship responded with aggression, use minimal defensive force. But Ryland knew better than to play it by the book. Peace was a luxury Earth never earned. They'd burned too many bridges, glassed too many rebel colonies, and built warships too big to ignore. Earth didn't make friends. Earth made examples. Load kinetic railguns, Ryland said quietly. Power down launch tubes, but keep the fusion torpedoes warm. The bridge went still. Commander? First Officer Brinley leaned in. That's against contact protocol. Ryland didn't even glance at him. That's survival protocol. Brinley hesitated, then nodded. He knew. They all knew. The alien vessel came into view on the main holoscreen, a shimmering beast of pale metal and organic tendrils, pulsing slowly as if breathing. Beautiful and terrible at once. It had no visible weapons, no armor, no structure a human mind could classify. But Ryland didn't trust what he saw. Open a channel, he said. There was a delay, then static, then a sound. Deep, resonant, like a whale song wrapped in thunder. The rhythm was still there, but now it echoed like a warning. Commander, Brinley's voice lowered. The sound wave just triggered anomalies in our weapons bay. Ryland stood. Explain. The torpedo bay's cooling system just spiked, spontaneously. No one touched it. The alien sound was doing something. Not attacking, at least not yet, but influencing systems it shouldn't be able to reach. That was enough. End communication attempt, Ryland said. Raise shields. Arm all weapons. Colt spun in his chair. Sir, High Command. I don't give a damn what High Command wants. That ship is probing us. The bridge fell into a rhythm of practiced fear. Hands moved, orders snapped, systems booted. The calm before the gunshot. Then, without warning, the alien ship's skin split open. No noise, no charge up. just a sudden burst of light that came out like a star being born. Everyone braced. No impact, no explosion, but every console blinked. Every system on the horizon breaker rebooted. Even life support. For 6 full seconds, the mightiest warship ever built was nothing but a drifting coffin. And in that darkness, Ryland realized one thing. This wasn't a greeting. It was a test. And humanity had just failed. The power returned with a gut-wrenching jolt. Consoles lit up. Engines surged. Shields re-engaged. The sound of the ship breathing again, fans spinning, systems recalibrating, was almost worse than the silence. Ryland gritted his teeth as the flickering bridge screens came back online, data flooding in all at once. "Status report," he barked. "Engine stable," Colt called. "Life support nominal," added Medical Officer Vell. "No fatalities, but the neural systems blinked. Entire crew blacked out for 5 seconds." Ryland's fists clenched so hard he felt a tendon crack. "You're telling me every single person aboard this ship lost consciousness?" "Yes, sir. Everyone except the AI cores." A chill passed through him. The crew, the heart of the horizon breaker, just went dead in space for 5 seconds. 5 seconds that could have been used for anything. Invasion, data theft, sabotage, violation. He turned to Brinley. "Weapons?" The first officer's face was pale. "Online, but one torpedo bay is locked. System override engaged during the blackout, trying to regain access." "By who?" Brinley swallowed. "We don't know." Ryland's stare bored into the screen, where the alien ship hovered in complete stillness, its shimmering tendrils folding back into itself like it hadn't just neutralized the most dangerous weapon Earth had ever built. "This is psychological warfare," he muttered. "They could have destroyed us. They didn't." Colt turned. "Maybe that was the message, sir." "No." Ryland's voice dropped. "That was a reminder. They're not here for peace. They're here to measure what we are." And what we are, Ryland thought bitterly, is too used to holding the bigger stick. "Open encrypted channel to High Command," he ordered. Brinley looked hesitant, but obeyed. Within moments, a grim holographic projection of Admiral Kravik shimmered above the console. Her eyes were sharp, cold, someone who had sent men to die before breakfast and slept soundly by midnight. "Commander Ryland, situation report." Ryland kept his voice level. "The alien vessel initiated a non-lethal EMP-style assault. Total blackout for 6 seconds. Full ship systems were hijacked. One torpedo bay remains under unauthorized lockout. We are not in control." There was a pause on her end. "You're telling me the horizon breaker, a Titan-Class warship, was disabled in under 10 seconds by a single alien signal?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you didn't return fire?" "Number. Because if I had, we'd be scrap floating in orbit." Kravik narrowed her eyes. "Diplomatic protocol states minimal response until lethal force is confirmed." "With respect, Admiral, we're past protocol." Another long pause. Then she leaned forward. "You are authorized to initiate Measure 7. Brinley's head snapped toward Ryland. He mouthed, "You can't be serious." Ryland didn't answer. Measure 7 wasn't just military escalation. It was preemptive war. If Ryland gave the word, he'd fire on the alien ship with every weapon the horizon breaker had. Earth's first message to intelligent life would be a wall of nuclear fire. He looked at the screen. The alien ship still sat there, eerily silent. Its surface no longer pulsed. No sound, no signals. Like it was waiting. Ryland knew what this meant. Diplomacy was dead. The moment the alien vessel entered human space, it had chosen to act first. Neutralizing the horizon breaker was the alien equivalent of knocking on the door with a loaded gun. He closed the comm line without another word to Kravik. "Sir," Brinley said cautiously, "we're talking about genocide." "No," Ryland said quietly. "We're talking about survival." Colt interjected. "Sir, if I may, what if this is how they communicate? What if they see technology differently? Maybe they think disabling our ship is peaceful?" Ryland turned to him slowly. "If a man walks into your house, rips the wires out of your walls, and shuts off your oxygen, is that a hello to you?" Colt looked away. "Load all railguns," Ryland said. "Prep nuclear payloads. Remove safeties." The silence that followed wasn't resistance. It was fear. But they obeyed. For the next 5 minutes, the ship came alive in a new way, the hum of charging coils, the deep thrum of torpedo cradles sliding into launch tubes. Red lights dimmed as the warship entered kill mode. The AI's voice dropped an octave, alert, ready. Ryland didn't give a rousing speech. He didn't have one. This wasn't about courage. It was about sending a message. Earth doesn't kneel. "On my mark, fire everything we've got at their core structure," he ordered. "No warning shot." Brinley looked sick. "Yes, Commander." Ryland watched the screen one last time. That strange, otherworldly ship just floating there. No shields, no weapons, no movement, like it had already seen how this would end. "Mark." The horizon breaker fired. The silence broke with the roar of mass drivers launching projectiles at 10 times the speed of sound. Torpedoes burst from the underbelly of the ship in trails of white heat. Plasma lances surged forward like bolts from a god's fist. They all hit. Direct impact. And nothing. No explosion, no reaction. The moment the weapons made contact, they dissolved, like snow hitting a furnace. The alien ship absorbed the energy, the metal, even the blast waves, like it had never happened. Colt screamed, "They've got an absorption shield, some kind of gravitational field." Ryland stepped forward, stunned. "We hit them with half a planetary payload." Then the alien ship moved. Not fast, not aggressive, just forward. A single tendril extended from its body, long, narrow, smooth. It reached out across the void, like a finger pointing directly at Horizon Breaker's bridge. And then they heard it, not through comms, not through sensors, inside their minds. A voice, cold, deep, timeless. Everyone on the bridge clutched their heads. Some dropped to their knees. One man started weeping uncontrollably. The voice wasn't sound. It was pressure. Like the weight of a collapsing star being forced into the mind. Ryland forced himself to stand. Blood dripped from his nose. "Broadcast this. Record everything." Brinley was shaking. "They're in our heads, sir. They're bypassing everything." "You are not ready. Your weapons are fear. Your words are empty. Your instinct is extinction." Ryland coughed, spitting blood on the floor. "Then why come here?" No answer. Just silence. Then the alien ship lit up again. That same light from before, but this time directed at Earth. Ryland's eyes widened. "It's charging something, targeting Earth. They're sending a signal." "Interception possible?" Colt yelled. "No, it's a gravity wave, faster than light." In the next instant, every screen showed the same thing. An exact copy of the alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit. Not a video, not a warning, a clone. Made of light, energy, something no one could explain. Panic swept through the bridge. If this was what one ship could do, what the hell would two mean? Ryland activated the distress beacon. "This is Commander Ryland of the Horizon Breaker. First contact has failed. Alien entity possesses unmatched technological superiority. Diplomacy broken. Preemptive strike failed. Earth must assume immediate defensive posture." But he stopped. Because in the middle of the message, the alien ship in front of him began vanishing. Not warping. Not escaping. Disassembling. Molecule by molecule, it unraveled into nothing, like it had never existed. The tendrils evaporated, the core dimmed, and finally, silence returned to the void. Just empty space. Nothing remained, and that was somehow worse than destruction. For the next hour, the crew sat in numb silence. No further signals, no enemy response, no retaliation, no answers. Just the quiet. Brinley leaned on the console, barely able to keep his voice steady. "What the hell just happened, sir?" Ryland didn't respond right away. Then he finally said, "They came to see who we are. What we do when we're scared." Colt whispered, "And we showed them." Ryland nodded. "We showed them we're still animals with nukes." He walked across the bridge, blood still on his lips, and looked at the now empty stars. "We tried to speak through violence. They responded with restraint." "Or mockery," Brinley added bitterly. Ryland didn't disagree. "Maybe restraint is mockery when you're a god." No one had anything left to say. They were the most powerful ship humanity had ever built, and they had been nothing more than a footnote in an alien's clipboard. Later, Earth would review the logs. They'd call it a tragedy, a test, a misunderstanding. But Ryland knew the truth. The first encounter had nothing to do with diplomacy. It had always been a trial, and humanity had come out looking like a frightened child with a gun. The silence of deep space had always been comforting to Ryland, but not now. Not after what happened. It wasn't the kind of quiet that brought peace. It was the silence that follows a scream. A long, haunting absence of sound after something irreversible has taken place. 3 days had passed since the alien vessel vanished. 3 days since the horizon breaker, humanity's pride, opened fire on an unprovoked visitor and got embarrassed in return. The damage wasn't physical. The ship was intact, the crew alive, but reputations, trust, command? Those were bleeding. Earth was furious, not outwardly, not yet. But the messages from high command weren't the same. No more direct orders, no more conversations, just sterile debriefs, cold instructions, and silence where once there was pride. Ryland sat in the war room alone, a place once filled with tactical chatter, now just cold screens and flickering monitors replaying the same thing. The failed strike, the vanishing ship, the psychic warning. His message hadn't even been allowed to reach the general public. The entire event was labeled classified anomaly. A bureaucratic way of saying we screwed up, and we're going to bury it deep. There was a soft chime at the door. Ryland didn't answer. It slid open anyway. Brinley entered, shoulders squared but face hollow. "Commander." Ryland didn't look up. "What's the verdict?" Brinley hesitated. "Command has grounded us. Horizon Breaker is to return to lunar base and be decommissioned for systems auditing. You're relieved of field command pending a tribunal." Ryland finally looked at him. They want a scapegoat. They want silence. They can't admit first contact happened and ended like that. Ryland stood slowly, walking to the viewport, watching the stars that now felt colder. "We fired first," he said. "No one will ever forget that." "You followed procedure." "No, I didn't." His voice was low but firm. "I followed instinct. I looked at that thing and I saw a threat. I chose fear over patience. That's on me." Brinley didn't argue. He respected Ryland too much to offer false comfort. "But," Ryland continued, turning back to him, "tell me something, honestly. If you were in my seat, watching a ship disable every system we had, Enter your crew's minds, and then aim at Earth. Would you have waited? Brinley looked away. No. Ryland gave a bitter smile. Then why do I feel like a goddamn criminal? Because Earth doesn't care what was reasonable. They care what looks bad. You just made humanity look small. They won't forgive you for that. The silence lingered between them. Then Brinley added, They're also sending up a recovery vessel. Crew swap, full systems audit. You'll be escorted off the ship in 12 hours. Ryland nodded. Understood. As Brinley turned to leave, Ryland stopped him. What about Earth? Brinley turned. What about it? That clone of the alien ship, the one they sent into orbit. Is it still there? Brinley exhaled slowly. Yeah, still floating. No movement, no signal. It just hovers. No explanation. Ryland's jaw clenched. Like a monument, a warning. Or a mirror. Ryland didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The corridors of the Horizon Breaker were quieter than usual. No salutes, no casual jokes from engineers, no admiring glances at the massive fusion core that powered the Titan. Everyone walked like ghosts, waiting for the curtain to fall. Ryland wandered alone, passing the weapons bay where torpedoes once roared, past the medical ward where Vel still monitored brain scans for psychic anomalies, past the AI core, where the ship's synthetic mind had gone silent since the encounter, refusing to analyze the event logs. It was as if even the ship itself was ashamed. He reached the observation deck, the only place where glass still separated man from the stars. It was there he saw it. The alien vessel clone, hanging above Earth like a cold judge, casting no shadow but plenty of fear. He stared at it for a long time. He didn't know why. Maybe he was hoping it would move. Blink. Speak again. Offer a second chance. But it didn't. Just then, Colt appeared beside him, holding a data pad. Sir, there's something you should see. Ryland took it. If it's another tribunal schedule, I'm not interested. It's not that. It's the encrypted scans from the moment the alien ship vanished. We thought the signal ended, but something kept broadcasting. Ryland's brows furrowed as he read the data. What the hell is this? Colt pointed at a waveform. It's not a signal meant for us. It's a beacon. Low-frequency pulse, subspace. It's been transmitting since the moment the ship disappeared. Transmitting what? Colt hesitated. A location. Ryland's eyes narrowed. You're telling me that ship wasn't the only one? Colt nodded slowly. I think it was just the scout. The floor seemed to shift under Ryland's feet. And Earth's doing what about this? Nothing. They don't know. I've kept the data encrypted. I don't trust them to respond wisely. Ryland handed the pad back. Good, he muttered. Last thing we need is another idiot with a trigger finger. Colt looked at him for a long moment. What if they come back, sir? They will. And if Earth panics again? Ryland's jaw set. Then Earth dies. And maybe it deserves to. Colt swallowed hard. Ryland turned back to the window. We built this ship to be a symbol of power, but all we did was show them our weakness. They didn't fire, Colt said. They could have, but they didn't. No, Ryland said quietly. They didn't need to. They knew one thing we didn't. What's that? That fear is louder than 1,000 cannons. Later that evening, Ryland stood at the loading dock as a team of new officers boarded. Cold, clean uniforms, no eye contact. They moved past him like he was invisible. The escort officer approached him, a younger man, stiff posture. "Commander Ryland, you are officially relieved. Please surrender your command credentials." Ryland offered the wristband. "Take care of her." The officer didn't respond. He left without a word, carrying only a small duffel. As he walked through the transfer corridor into the recovery ship, he didn't look back. But Earth wasn't done with him. Not by a long shot. 3 days later, Ryland sat inside a sealed tribunal chamber back on lunar base. No jury. Just 3 monitors with faceless officials. No names. Just titles. "Commander Ryland, this is a formal inquiry into your actions during the first contact event," the voice said, flat and detached. "Do you understand the charges?" Ryland leaned forward. "You mean, do I understand what you're accusing me of because you're too afraid to admit we got outclassed by something we don't understand?" "Yeah. I understand just fine." There was silence. "You fired preemptively, Commander." "I fired to protect my crew and planet. That ship had already demonstrated control over our systems. You think waiting would have changed that?" "Earth's policy on alien contact was diplomatic engagement unless directly attacked." "Disabling my ship was an attack." "That's not how the Council sees it." "Then maybe the Council should sit on a dead warship in the middle of deep space and see how diplomatic they feel." Another pause. "The purpose of this tribunal is not to debate philosophy. It's to determine whether your actions endangered Earth." Ryland chuckled bitterly. "Endangered Earth? You think Earth wasn't in danger the moment that thing arrived?" No response. Ryland leaned in, voice lower now. "You're trying to make me the face of this because you're terrified of what comes next? You want to make the world believe this was a mistake made by one man, not a sign that we're not ready." "You are advised to watch your tone, Commander." He stood up. "You can strip my rank, burn my name from the books. Hell, launch me into a black hole if you want. But that ship, those things, they're still watching. You think this is over? You think it ended when the ship disappeared?" He took a step forward, eyes burning. "It just began." Ryland was officially labeled as non-operational, a clean, bureaucratic way of saying we've shelved you like a bad memory. The tribunal didn't convict him, but they didn't need to. They exiled him in all but name. He was dropped into a low-orbit station with limited clearance, no rank, and a job that amounted to nothing more than silent observation. They gave him a room, a basic security pass, and a view of Earth that mocked him every time he looked at it. He wasn't punished publicly because that would draw attention. He wasn't honored because that would mean admitting Earth provoked a superior intelligence. He was hidden. That's what they did to problems that scared them. But Ryland wasn't done, not even close. The days since his forced relocation blurred together, but the questions didn't stop screaming in his mind. The alien vessel had come to judge, not destroy. The copy floating in Earth's orbit hadn't moved, but it hadn't left either. Every hour it remained was another pound of pressure on Earth's already thin-skinned politics. And now something new had crept in. Paranoia. It started with quiet reports leaked to civilian analysts, faint anomalies near the outer rim of the solar system. Then, rumors that unmanned probes had stopped sending telemetry. Then whispers that one of Mars's orbital satellites had picked up a distortion, something massive passing behind the red planet's shadow without registering on radar. And still, Earth's leadership did nothing, except dig deeper into denial. But Ryland was already 3 moves ahead. He hadn't left the horizon breaker without contingency. Colt had slipped him an encrypted data shard, filled with black box readings, logs scrubbed by the AI, and an unauthorized beacon that had gone unnoticed by everyone. Except him. At 0300 hours, in his dimly lit quarters, Ryland stood over the projector screen, shirt half unbuttoned, jaw clenched, sleep-deprived eyes locked on waveforms that pulsed like a heartbeat. Their heartbeat. The same signal that had been broadcasting from the alien vessel since it disappeared. Colt was right. It wasn't just a farewell. It was a call. And someone had answered. He tapped into a backdoor frequency Colt embedded in the transmission stream, rerouted it through the station's passive comm array, and isolated the feedback. That's when he saw it. A return ping. Faint. Distant. But there. Another signal from beyond Neptune's orbit, responding to the beacon like a whisper between titans. Not just one ship. Multiple. Approaching. Ryland staggered back from the console. They were coming back. The next morning, Ryland walked through the security wing like a man with purpose, his old posture creeping back into his steps. He reached the command desk, where low-level officers in gray uniforms monitored debris and asteroid fields. He handed his tablet to the nearest one, a clean-shaven man named Korik. "You're going to escalate this," Ryland said, "all the way to orbital defense." Korik looked at the screen. "Sir, with respect, you don't have the clearance." Ryland slammed his palm down. "Forget clearance. Look at the data." Korik hesitated, but the urgency in Ryland's tone made him plug in the tablet. His expression changed quickly, casual to rigid, then from rigid to pale. "What the hell is this?" "A signal from beyond the outer solar system. It's matching the alien frequency from our first contact. And that return ping, it's not one ship, it's multiple objects. Big ones, they're moving." "Why hasn't this been reported?" "Because you're not me," Ryland growled, "and the people who are in charge don't want the truth getting out." Korik took a breath. "If I forward this, you won't. You'll be buried. But if you patch me into Earth's orbital council directly, I'll take the fall." "You'll be locked up." Ryland leaned in. "Better that than watching Earth get caught with its pants down again." Korik hesitated one more second, then nodded. He patched the stream. Minutes later, Ryland stood in front of a live feed conference, 5 leaders from Earth's Orbital Defense Council, their faces stone cold behind layers of formality. "Commander Ryland," the chairwoman began, "you're in violation of multiple access restrictions. Explain yourself." He didn't bother with pleasantries. "There's a fleet incoming. Alien. Same signature, same transmission pattern. You need to mobilize planetary defense now." Laughter broke through one of the feeds. The representative from the Euro-Asian sector chuckled. "More ghost signals?" "We've already confirmed false positives from outer system noise." Ryland cut in, louder. "This isn't noise. This is a pattern. It's their pattern. You think what came before was the main act? That was a scout, a judge. What's coming now?" "Is unconfirmed," the chairwoman interrupted. "We will not start a global panic on one man's paranoid assumptions." "It's not an assumption," he shouted, holding up the waveforms. "They're signaling each other, coordinating. The one hovering in Earth's orbit hasn't moved because it's waiting. The fleet is the real contact party, and it's almost here." The Euro-Asian rep spoke again, colder this time. "Commander, you've been relieved for misconduct. You're no longer qualified to assess threat levels." Ryland's hands curled into fists. "You think this is about pride? About saving my career? I know what I saw, I know what they are." The chairwoman sighed. "This tribunal is over." The feed cut, just like that. Ryland stared at the blank screen. They were going to do it again. Ignore the threat. Pretend Earth was still the apex predator in the universe. He turned to Korik. "Download everything. Send it to every private observatory, every rogue scientist, every journalist with a spine. Blow the lid off. You're going to start a panic." Ryland looked him dead in the eyes. "Good. Maybe it'll get Earth off its knees." Within 48 hours, chaos bloomed. The signal leaks hit multiple channels. Civilian astronomers confirmed the deep space anomalies. Footage from an unmanned Saturn probe, previously sealed under routine calibration error, showed a silhouette blotting out a segment of the rings. Then another. Then another. Panic gripped the population like a disease. Governments tried to deny, then downplay, then spin. But it was too late. The people believed Ryland because fear was louder than reason, and this time fear was right. Somewhere in a classified EarthGov bunker, Admiral Kravik watched the footage in silence. Her aides surrounded her, whispering data. Recalibrations, projected arrival times, planetary defense activation. She said nothing. Then finally, "Get me Ryland." Ryland was arrested in the middle of his bunk. No resistance, just a bitter smile as 2 guards pulled him out and cuffed him. He didn't care. He knew where he was going. When the door to the briefing chamber opened and Kravik stood there in her full admiral's coat, arms folded, eyes as sharp as ever, he didn't salute. "Admiral?" She stared at him a moment. "You look worse than I expected." "You look exactly the same." She gestured toward a chair. He didn't sit. "So," he said, "you're here to apologize, or to bury me deeper?" Kravik ignored the jab. "How many ships?" 17, maybe more. Still cloaked or hiding behind gravity fields. The lead formation will reach Saturn's orbit in under a week." She nodded. "Weapons?" "Same as before. Unknown. Doesn't matter. They don't need guns. They can shut us down with a pulse." "And intentions?" Ryland laughed bitterly. "You tell me. We fired first. We panicked first. We proved ourselves unworthy before they even introduced themselves." Kravik didn't flinch. "That may be true, but if they're coming for war—" "They're not coming for war," he interrupted. "They're coming to judge. The first one saw our response. Now the fleet comes to see if we've learned anything. And if we haven't, then they'll wipe us out." The war room felt different this time. Not because the walls had changed, but because the fear had. Before, fear was uncertainty, the fear of the unknown. Now it was a countdown. Ryland stood at the center table, unshackled now, surrounded by a fresh wave of faces, military strategists, planetary defense leaders, corporate security magnates, and a few pale-faced representatives from what remained of Earth's Leadership Council. Admiral Kravik was the only familiar one. She hadn't said much since pulling Ryland back into the fold, but her presence at his side said enough. She'd chosen him. And now they all had to live with that. On the main holo projection, 17 alien ships hovered in formation beyond Saturn's orbit. Some as small as fighter drones, others larger than city grids. They glided through space like leviathans made of glass and lightning, silent but undeniable. Each passing hour brought them closer. Every attempt at communication had failed. Not because the aliens didn't respond, but because the aliens didn't need to. They already knew who they were dealing with. Ryland broke the silence. "Any word from the Sentinel?" Colt, patched in from a lower orbit command station, responded through the audio uplink. "Still in orbit. Zero movement, zero activity, but its signal has intensified, like it's syncing with the approaching fleet." "It's a beacon," Ryland muttered. "It's preparing Earth for something." One of the counselors, a narrow-shouldered man with politician skin and no soul behind his eyes, spoke up. "Are we sure these things aren't positioning for a planetary takeover?" Ryland didn't hide his disdain. "If they wanted to take us, they would have. They're not preparing to kill us. They're preparing to judge us, again." The man scoffed. "Forgive me if I don't want to wait for interstellar gods to decide whether we live or die like insects." Ryland turned, stepping closer. "Then maybe you shouldn't have built a civilization that fires before it listens." The room fell quiet. Admiral Kravich cut through it. What Ryland is trying to say, Counselor, is that these beings aren't playing by our rules. If we treat them like another enemy, we lose. If we treat them like saviors, we're fools. Another general, a hard-faced man named Dorn, folded his arms. Then what's the play? Ryland looked back at the display. The play, he said slowly, is not defense, not attack, not silence. Then what? Ryland looked him dead in the eyes. We show them something they haven't seen yet from us, humility. Someone in the back laughed bitterly. Earth's not good at that. No, Ryland said, but it better learn fast. Later that evening, Ryland stood alone in the old AI core of the Horizon Breaker, now housed in a lunar defense lab. It had been disconnected from the ship but still functioned, its glowing sphere dim, as if reluctant to speak after what had happened. Still sulking? Ryland asked. The AI's voice was lower than before, tired almost. I processed 4.2 trillion variables since the encounter. I still cannot rationalize what they are. They don't fit your equations. They don't fit anything. Ryland walked around the core slowly. Do you think they're testing us? Yes. What's the test? Intent, response, pattern, capacity for change. Your species is built on reaction, not reflection. The first contact was your crucible. You failed. Ryland chuckled dryly. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I do not judge, I report. Well, start reporting this, he said. Tell me if you detect any planetary anomalies, sociological, digital, anything strange happening on Earth in the last 36 hours? Yes, there has been a spike in encrypted chatter across the dark comm network. Human? Yes, originating from EarthGov's internal servers, redirected through corporate satellites, heavily encoded. Ryland narrowed his eyes. Can you decrypt it? Not without tripping alarms. He paced. Something was wrong. Earth's top defense was focused on the incoming fleet, and someone was using that blind spot to hide something. He had a bad feeling, the kind that clung to the gut like cold oil. Map it, he said. Give me every origin point. Now. The AI obeyed. A hologram appeared, littered with red dots, signals bouncing between data centers, satellites, corporate nodes, and one name kept flashing. Project Inheritance. Ryland's heart skipped. He tapped his wrist. Get me Colt, secure line. Colt answered within seconds. Ryland? Where are you right now? EarthGov Observatory, Quadrant 9. Can you access the Project Inheritance archives? There was a long pause. How do you know about that? Colt, Ryland growled. Don't make me repeat myself. Give me 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes felt longer than the 3 days he spent in exile. Colt's voice came back strained, whispering like he was being listened to. I found it. But, Ryland, this isn't a defense program. It's not military. Then what is it? Colt hesitated. It's selection criteria. Selection for what? Survival. Ryland felt the blood leave his face. Say that again. There's a subcommittee in EarthGov, tied to corporate syndicates and old-world financiers. They've created a list of essential humans, individuals deemed genetically optimal, psychologically stable, intellectually beneficial. They're building an ark. Colt nodded. Yeah. The moment they confirmed the alien fleet, the Project Inheritance Protocol activated. High-ranking officials and selected civilians will be relocated to underground shelters. The rest of Earth is left to its natural course. Jesus Christ! Ryland stepped back, breathing hard. They've given up. Number, they've just decided who gets to survive. He stormed into the EarthGov compound an hour later, dragging the full decrypted data feed behind him on a quantum drive. The guards didn't stop him. The eyes of everyone in the corridor followed him like ghosts watching a man about to break. He burst into the war room. Kravik stood at the head of the table. "You knew," Ryland said. Her face didn't change. "Knew what?" He slammed the drive down. "Inheritance, the list, the private shelters, the backdoor exit while the rest of humanity burns." The room went cold. Kravik finally spoke. "It's a contingency. It's cowardice." "No," she snapped. "It's realism. We are not guaranteed survival. We are not guaranteed mercy. If the worst happens, if we're wiped out, Earth must preserve a future." Ryland stared at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. "You don't get to decide who's worthy of survival. Not after what we did. The aliens may decide none of us are worthy." Ryland leaned closer. "Then maybe we should earn that damn judgment instead of hiding underground like insects." Kravik's expression hardened. "You think bravery will save us?" "I think honesty might." The room was silent. Then Ryland turned to the council. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell Earth what's coming. No more secrets. No more curated broadcasts. No more silencing people like me. Give humanity the truth and let it decide how it wants to be remembered." The councilors exchanged uneasy looks. Kravik stepped forward. "Do that, and we risk panic." "Do nothing," Ryland growled, "and we guarantee extinction." Hours later, Earth changed, not through destruction, but through revelation. Ryland stood in the old transmission tower, watching as broadcast networks across every continent interrupted their programming. A live feed began. Not a politician. Not a filtered press secretary. Ryland's face. He looked directly into the camera, raw, unshaved, bloodshot eyes burning with fire. "My name is Ryland," he began, "and you've been lied to." Ryland's face was everywhere, not as a soldier, not as a disgraced commander, but as a man who had seen what was coming and refused to stay silent. His broadcast had ripped through the planet like wildfire, bypassing state firewalls, hijacking corporate satellites, bleeding across news feeds, home terminals, street screens in slums, underground networks, bunkers, schools, corporate towers. He didn't scream. He didn't rant. He spoke with the weight of a man who'd accepted the worst and still found the guts to face it. "They are coming, and not to invade, not to steal resources or conquer land. They're coming to judge who we are, and most of you haven't even been told." He exposed Project Inheritance, named the corporations funding it, named the officials planning to disappear underground while the rest of humanity took the blast head-on. And then he told the people, "You have the right to decide what face we show them. Not the cowards hiding in bunkers, not the elite who already decided you weren't worth saving." No politician had ever said anything that cut deeper. Within 24 hours, Earth changed. The cities erupted first. Riots, mass protests, armed civilians clashing with law enforcement. In Europe, bunkers tied to the inheritance program were stormed and looted. One was set on fire with executives still inside. In North America, a convoy carrying selected survivors was ambushed and broadcast live as rebels hijacked the feed and shouted Ryland's name. Some called him a hero, others a terrorist. Didn't matter. The lie had collapsed. And through it all, the alien ships kept coming. By the 4th day after the leak, the lead vessel passed Jupiter. The copy that had been hovering in Earth's orbit finally moved, slowly, deliberately, turning to face the planet below as though its gaze had finally found reason to focus. And for the first time in nearly 2 weeks, it spoke, not in sound, not in light, but in thought. Every human mind received it. One word. "Ready?" That was it. Just a single word that shattered the air like a gunshot in a chapel. Ryland stood in a military vault beneath Lunar Command, surrounded by chaos. The council had fractured. Half of Earth's leaders had resigned or disappeared. The other half argued over whether to activate Earth's full planetary defense grid and meet the aliens with force. Admiral Kravik had gone silent. She hadn't spoken to Ryland since the broadcast, but he knew she was watching, waiting. The war room had turned into a circus. Every voice shouted over the others. Philosophers argued with generals. Scientists argued with survivalists. The alien fleet was now between Mars and Earth, close enough for telescopes to pick out hull textures. No weapons were visible. But that didn't make anyone feel safer. Ryland paced the corridor outside the command chamber when Colt's voice came through his private line. "They're broadcasting again," he said. "Same frequency?" Ryland asked. "Number, this one's different. Tighter. Narrower. Directed. Directed at who?" "You." Ryland stopped walking. "What?" Colt's voice dropped. "They're contacting you, Ryland." They escorted him to the signal chamber, where hundreds of lines of psychic waveforms were being translated by neural lattice processors. A chair sat in the center of the room, cushioned, wired, lined with dampeners. It looked less like a seat, and more like a place you'd strap a man before taking his mind apart. "You sure about this?" asked the technician beside him. Ryland looked at the massive screen, displaying a simple message pulsing in alien script. He sat down. The moment the contact node touched the back of his skull, he was no longer in the room. He stood in a vast, dark field, stars above, no gravity, no horizon. In front of him, a shifting figure took shape. Tall, blinding and opaque at the same time. The voice came not with words but feeling. Weight, purpose. "You fired first." "I did. You feared us." "Yes. You failed." "I know." The shape tilted, observing. "And now?" "I understand why that failure matters. You are one. One voice. Why should your species live because of your regret?" Ryland stepped forward. "Because maybe regret is the first step to change." The air shimmered. 1,000 lights appeared around him, hovering. 17 vessels, each capable of ending your species in a moment, yet none have. Do you know why? Ryland's throat tightened. "Because you're waiting to see if we deserve that mercy." The light pulsed. "Earth burns. You exposed their failure. But you are still them." "No," Ryland said, louder now. "I was them, but I changed, and they can too." Silence. Then the lights swirled. "Earth is at a threshold. We will offer one test, one decision, from you." Ryland froze. "Me?" "The species failed. But you did not flee. You did not hide. You stood." He stepped forward. "What's the test?" "We will offer a choice." The space split into two visions. In one, the alien fleet surrounded Earth, and light consumed the planet. Not with fire, with silence, a sterilization, clean, clinical, no suffering, just an erasure. In the second, the ships dispersed. Humanity watched them leave. And in their place, knowledge rained from orbit, clean energy, disease cures, peaceful AIs, the tools to evolve, without chains. But one action leads to one outcome, not both. Ryland stared. What action? The vision zoomed into Earth, a single tower, inheritance, central command. "Burn it," the voice said, "publicly, globally, not hidden, not erased. Burn it in front of their eyes, or we burn you." Ryland's mouth was dry. "And if I refuse? Then the choice will be made for you. You remain animals." He came back, gasping. The room was silent. Everyone stared at him like he'd just crawled out of his own grave. "Jesus," Colt muttered. "What did they say?" Ryland stood, shaking. "They gave us one chance." "What kind?" He looked at the council display, at the tower, at the symbol of the betrayal. "They want that burned to the ground." "And if we don't?" Ryland didn't need to answer. The skies would, The world wasn't ready for salvation. It barely even understood the price. Ryland stood before the massive digital wall in Lunar Command, where a glowing image of Inheritance Tower loomed. It was one of 3 global hubs. A black steel monument in the heart of old Switzerland, reinforced with nanocarbon, privately protected by a corporate security force larger than most standing armies. It was never meant to be touched, never meant to fall. And now, the survival of humanity depended on burning it to the ground. He turned to the room. His voice was steady, clear, and heavy. We have 20 hours. That's when the fleet reaches orbital lock. Colt adjusted the display beside him, showing real-time trajectories of the alien ships. They're holding formation. No weapons drawn, no signals sent, just waiting. Waiting for us to do what they asked, Ryland said. One of the lunar tacticians, Commander Weld, spoke up, skeptical. And you're telling us that destroying this one facility is what convinces them to spare Earth? I'm telling you that's what they demanded, Ryland answered. They want to see if we're capable of owning up to our failure, if we can face what we've built and decide to burn it ourselves. Weld folded his arms. You really expect Inheritance to just let you walk in and light it up? No, Ryland said. That's why we take it by force. The room went silent. Admiral Kravik finally stepped forward from the edge of the shadows. She hadn't spoken to Ryland since his psychic contact with the alien presence. But now, she looked at him differently. Less like a subordinate, more like a man she couldn't afford to doubt. You're asking us to start a war with Earth's most powerful private military complex, she said. I'm not asking, Ryland replied. I'm going, with or without authorization. Kravik gave him a long, silent stare. Then she turned to her officers. What assets can we deploy without alerting Global Command? Within an hour, the team was assembled. 12 men and women, all combat veterans, all loyal to Ryland after his broadcast changed the course of human history. They had one goal: breach Inheritance Tower, override the failsafe, and ignite the public destruction sequence. There would be no rescue, no backup, no turning back. The transport ship tore through the atmosphere just after midnight, undetected thanks to a blackout cloaking array provided by a rogue faction in Earth's resistance movement. Ryland sat in the front of the bay, weapon strapped to his chest, helmet at his side. Colt sat across from him, face pale but determined. You ever breach a private army compound before? He asked. Ryland smirked. Once, on Venus. Didn't end well. Still confident? No, Ryland said, but it's not about winning anymore. It's about proving. Colt nodded. They're gonna fight us hard. Good, Ryland said. Let the aliens see how hard we'll fight our own monsters. They hit ground 2 kilometers from the tower and moved fast through the snow-covered forest trails. Drone scouts hovered above them, jamming radar feeds, while electromagnetic suppressors disabled surveillance grids. By the time they reached the outer perimeter of Inheritance, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting the black obelisk of the tower in blood-red light. It looked untouchable, unshakable, like an iron judgment hanging over a dying world. Then Ryland raised his hand. Breach! The first explosion blew through the outer fence. Pulse rifles opened fire. Smoke grenades blanketed the lower tiers. Alarms screamed from the tower's base. Private guards in black body armor swarmed from security gates with plasma cannons and anti-armor rigs. The air lit up with energy bolts and tracer rounds. Ryland moved like a man possessed, diving between cover, barking orders, dropping enemies with tight bursts from his rifle. He kicked a side door open and led his team into the main operations wing. Brinley, status! He shouted into comms. Brinley, manning satellite support from orbit, replied, Security has initiated lockdown protocols. You'll have 20 minutes before automated drones swarm your position. Copy, We'll be done by then. They stormed through the interior. Marble floors cracked beneath their boots. Gold-laced columns splintered from gunfire. Men who had signed their names to humanity's extinction bled on the stairs of their fortress. At the core of the tower, they reached the vault. The vault that stored Inheritance's selection protocol, the database containing every name chosen for survival, every biometric scan, every exclusion file. Colt began hacking. Ryland stood guard. 5 minutes, Colt said. I can override the security shell, but the failsafe ignition needs manual confirmation from the command seat. Ryland stared through the glass window at the circular chamber beyond. The command seat was empty. Then a voice echoed through the speakers. I was wondering how long it would take for you to show up. Ryland turned sharply. From the hallway beyond, Saren Wells stepped forward. CEO of EOS Corp, architect of the Inheritance Initiative, and one of the most powerful men on Earth. Unarmed, but smiling. I suppose this is your Messiah moment, Saren said. Come to destroy the old world and save the souls of mankind? Ryland aimed his rifle. Step back. But Saren didn't move. You think this is heroism, but all I see is a frightened animal clawing at the cage it made for itself. You built the cage, Ryland spat. I built a future, Saren replied. One Earth might have survived. And now, you're about to light a fire in the middle of chaos and call it redemption. They gave us a choice. They? Saren laughed. You mean the gods that sat silent for millennia and now want to judge us? Screw that. I don't answer to aliens. Then you'll burn with your tower, Ryland said. Saren's eyes hardened. You think the aliens care about justice? They want obedience. They want to see us kneel, and you're giving them everything they want. No, Ryland said quietly. I'm giving them honesty, something this tower was never built for. He stepped past Saren, entered the command chamber, and sat. The interface came to life. Ignition protocol initiated. Confirm global broadcast destruction. Colt's voice came through. We're live. Every satellite, every screen, every phone, everyone's watching. Ryland placed his hand on the panel. He looked into the camera. No more secrets, no more favorites, no more hiding behind steel and algorithms. This tower was built to decide who lives and who dies, but they forgot the one thing that makes us human. He pressed the button. We burn together. The room lit with fire. From orbit, the world watched as Inheritance Tower exploded in a plume of smoke, light, and truth. Debris scattered across the mountains. Black ash fell from the sky like judgment reversed. In the silence that followed, Earth stood still. For the first time in its history, it had chosen to destroy something powerful. Not to win, not to survive, but to change. And in the sky above, the alien fleet stopped moving. They hovered, watching. And then, a single beam of soft white light descended from the lead ship, touching down where the tower had once stood. No sound. No words, just illumination. A gift. The judgment was over, and Earth had passed, not through perfection, but through courage. The tower was gone. Where once Inheritance stood, a monument to human arrogance, there was now only light. A dome of it, silent and impossibly still. It glowed without flame, burned without heat. Not alien fire, but something else entirely. Something clean, forgiving. And the world watched. No one spoke during those first few minutes after the tower fell. Every broadcast stopped mid-sentence. Every politician fell silent. Every plan and agenda evaporated under the raw weight of what had just happened. Humanity had struck down its own safety net. Not to survive, but to show that it deserved to. And the sky had not answered with thunder. It had answered with peace. Ryland stood among the rubble. Black ash clung to his boots, and twisted beams of carbon steel jutted from the smoking earth. Around him, what remained of his squad worked in silence, pulling wreckage away from what used to be a command center. Colt stood at his side, eyes wide, fixed on the dome of light that shimmered like a living thing. "You feel that?" Colt asked softly. Ryland nodded. "Like standing at the edge of a storm that passed you by. No radiation, no sound, but it's watching us." "It's accepting us," Ryland corrected. "Or maybe just acknowledging." Colt rubbed the back of his neck. "What do you think it means?" Ryland took a breath, slow and heavy. "It means we passed. But they never said what the test was. They didn't need to." A low humming sound began in the sky above them, not mechanical, not thunder, a resonance, a harmony like the breath of a planet. They all looked up. The lead alien vessel descended from the atmosphere like a god veiled in storm light. The world watched from every screen, every camera, every mountaintop and balcony. Even those who hated Ryland, those who doubted, who mocked the entire encounter, they held their breath. This was it, Earth's final moment. The vessel hovered just meters above the ruined crater where the tower had once ruled. Massive, smooth, formless, it pulsed with the same white light that radiated from the dome. And then it changed. A beam of energy shot from the ship and carved a perfect circle into the ash. Within seconds, the ash evaporated, and in its place was a platform, shimmering, metallic, alive. Then a figure stepped forward from the light. Not monstrous, not unknowable, humanoid. Slender, silver-skinned, featureless except for two eyes that burned white and calm. Ryland stepped forward instinctively, as if pulled by something deeper than will. The figure didn't speak in words. It didn't need to. Its voice came again through thought, clean, direct, undeniable. "You have chosen truth, and in truth, there is transformation." Ryland stood still, face streaked with soot and blood, heart pounding. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you begin again." It turned to face the squad, then the sky, then the planet itself. "No species is born enlightened. All are born clawing, fighting, but only those who see their own claws are ready to rise." Ryland stepped closer. "Then, you're not here to lead us?" "We do not lead. We observe, we test, we offer paths." "And if we had failed?" The light dimmed slightly, the air thickened. "Then your extinction would have been a kindness, mercy for a species too proud to evolve." Ryland swallowed hard. Colt was shaking behind him. "But we passed?" "No." The word hit like a gunshot. The figure turned back to Ryland. "You passed. The world followed. For now." Ryland's throat tightened. "Then, it's not over. Evolution never is." The light pulsed. The ground beneath them rippled, and within seconds, crystalline structures emerged, like libraries made of light. Data towers, pillars of knowledge, floating archives. "This is your inheritance, not of survival, of potential. What's in them?" Colt asked behind Ryland. The being turned its eyes on him. "Everything your species needs to heal itself, not through dominion, through understanding." Ryland stepped toward the being, jaw clenched. "And me? What am I to you now?" The light flared. "You are what your kind must become." Then the being vanished, swallowed by the beam, which retracted into the ship. A final pulse of light swept across the planet, soft, warm. Not a weapon, a message. The alien vessels rose again, slowly. Then, one by one, they vanished into the void, leaving behind no trace but the archives, and the silence of a world newly baptized. In the days that followed, Earth reeled. The inheritance elite were hunted, tried, and exiled. Some took their own lives. Others disappeared into obscurity. The archives spread knowledge faster than governments could regulate it. Disease cures, clean energy solutions, terraforming blueprints, education systems that made universities obsolete. It was all there. Humanity had been handed the keys to its future, not through conquest, not through war, but through surrender. And Ryland? He refused to be a symbol. He refused statues, medals, speeches. He returned to the same low-orbit station where he'd once been buried and made it his home. Quiet, isolated, watching. One morning Kravik visited. She wore civilian clothes now. No medals, no rank. "You're the most famous man on Earth," she said, standing beside him on the observation deck. He didn't look at her. "That's not something I'm proud of. You saved the species." I reminded it how close we were to destroying ourselves. She looked down. "They want you on the council. Let someone else take it. You earned it. I earned the right to disappear." Silence stretched between them. "You think they'll come back?" she finally asked. Ryland turned to look out the window. The stars stared back, cold, distant, watching. "They never left," he said. A year passed. Earth changed. Slowly, painfully, but it changed. Borders weakened. Governments fell. New ones rose, forged on shared responsibility. Old faiths collapsed. New ones bloomed. Some tried to twist the alien contact into a religion. Others tried to deny it happened at all. But no one could ignore the archives. They glowed in every major city now, untouchable, impenetrable, but forever accessible. And in the center of it all, one phrase burned above them in every language. "You have been seen." It was a reminder, a warning, and a promise. Ryland stood alone again on the old platform where Inheritance once stood. The wind was colder now, cleaner. Colt had gone to Mars, helping with the new colonies. Brinley had started a school. Kravik had disappeared into the diplomatic arm of the new planetary council. But Ryland stayed here. Not because he wanted to, because he had to. The sky cracked with thunder, and for a brief moment he thought he saw a glimmer. Something unnatural, shifting between dimensions above the cloud line. He smiled faintly. "Still watching?" he whispered. No answer came. Only the wind, but that was enough. Because sometimes just being watched was all it took to make you act like someone worth watching. And for the first time in human history, Earth finally understood that.